will be tonight's early round shocker? Where will these 12 drafters select Alvin Kamara? And can the Joes keep the title on their side for a fifth straight year? Follow along with the live draft board tonight. Watch our pick-by-pick analysis, as we call the action, from the 2022 FFPC Pros versus Joes Balance is Key #1 league to see who's going to win a 2023 FFPC main event squad. We've got a great show for you. Ferrell, Elliott is here. I'm Eric Balkman. Stick around. Your high-stakes fantasy football hour starts now.
I can't stand the pressure. I've seen greater men than me to listen.
Broadcast live and heard around the world, you are now watching the most entertaining hour of radio on the planet. Welcome to the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by MyFFPC.com with your hosts Eric Balkman and Ferrell Elliott. The High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour is your home for analysis from the best players in the world. And now, because no one else was available, here are Eric Balkman and Ferrell Elliott.
Solace in the scripture. Are we not all our father's sons? I became a man. Nobody ever told me what a man was.
Welcome, everybody. Tonight, it is a very special episode. I want to thank Rob and greetings and salutations to all the Bulkaholics and Ferrelliacs tuning in tonight. Welcome to the latest episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by MyFFPC.com. I'm your slightly above average host, Eric Balkman, and my co-host is the definitive commissioner of fantasy football, Ferrell Elliott. Tonight, we have the first of 6 special episodes for you. It's the 2022 FFPC Pros versus Joes Balance is Key League #1 draft tonight. We'll be covering it for the next 2 hours. Shout out to the chat room right now. If you have any questions for myself, for Ferrell, for tonight's guests that are going to be popping on, post them in there. Connect with us on Twitter at HSFF at Eric Balkman, or at Ferrell Elliott. Check out the KFFSC at KFFSC.com. Facebook.com/HSFF is where to reach us. And of course, the email inbox is always highstakesfantasyfootball@gmail.com. We'll get to all the chat room questions, all the tweets, all the emails in the fantasy feedback segment. Well, not really a segment tonight because we're going to do it throughout the whole show in the next hour and a half, hour 45, whatever we go tonight. And I'll shout out to our hardworking producer and mutual friend Rob, and our audio engineer and my best friend Bryce. As a reminder, tomorrow is the deadline for the 2022 FFPC main event early draft slot announcement. When you pay for your team in full, you're going to get your draft slot on August 1st. And remember that you already have a team, you're going to get $400 off each additional team you add on. Square those balances away and take your shot at an industry season-long fantasy football record $1 million grand prize this year. Let's get into tonight's episode, ladies and gentlemen. Before we show you the draft board, tell you who's participating tonight, leading things off in the 1 spot, it is Daniel Osorio, an FFPC Joe, followed by Mauricio Gutierrez from Estadio Fantasy, picking 2nd. Chris Carlson, the tickler himself, at 3. Shane Hallam from Draft Countdown is drafting 4th tonight. I don't know why I thought he was drafting tomorrow. He's drafting tonight, hitting cleanup. It's going to be fun. Henry Muto and Jake Wade, the FFPC Joes, drafting 5th. Evan Silva from Establish the Run is 6th. Adrian Quintana, an FFPC Joe, at 7. DraftSharks.com's Jared Smola is going to be picking 8th tonight. David Garcia, another FFPC Joe, followed by Sigmund Bloom from Footballguys at 10. James Kearney, the final FFPC Joe, and the final pro we have tonight, Scott Connor from Dynasty and Chill. He will be picking 12th. Let's bring up the draft board right now, ladies and gentlemen, as I bring in my co-host with the most, Ferrell Elliott, the definitive commissioner of fantasy football, and he does everything right over at the Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship. Ferrell, we're already into round 2, but I got to ask you, we're kicking this off. We're going to be doing this 6 times over the next 2 weeks. On a scale of 0 to 10, how ready are you for this?
Oh, I am more than ready, brother. You know, that was the horse that ran in Kentucky Derby a few years ago, finished 4th place with my money on him. And my money tonight, Balky, in our first draft off the board, our great friend Scott Connor, it's almost like handicapping War Admiral amongst 11 other horses. Scott Connor cut his teeth in Kentucky for the last 2 years. He was here for the Super Bowl party. He is more than ready to take down this field, and it looks like he's going running backs twice right off the board.
He did. Let's get through the first round, the big surprise. I guess if you can call it a surprise. Daniel Osorio goes with Cooper Kupp with the 1st overall pick. Jonathan Taylor goes 2nd. Justin Jefferson to Chris Carlson. In the third spot, Christian McCaffrey falls to draft countdown Shane Hallam at the 4. Jamar Chase to Henry Muto and Jake Wade in the 5 spot. Then we get back-to-back tight ends. Evan Silva takes Travis Kelce, and then Adrian Quintana takes Mark Andrews. A bunch of running backs here. Jared Smola, Austin Eckler. Then we have David Garcia taking Najee Harris. Sigmund Bloom goes with Joe Mixon. This is the first time, and my mind is not what it used to be, but I can't remember the last time that Sigmund Bloom did not take a tight end with his first round pick. But he goes with Mixon here, maybe because the top 2 tight ends were already off the board here. Stephon Diggs is James Kearney's pick at the 11. DeAndre Swift to Scott Connor there at the 12. Let's just talk about the first round briefly. Ferrell, in an FFPC tight end premium format, 1.5 points per tight end. Obviously, things get a little bit jumbled up. As a commissioner of a lot of these FFPC drafts, I've seen Cooper Kupp go first overall a few times, but this is always big in pros versus Joes. And we see Cooper Kupp go with the first overall pick tonight. In your FFPC leagues, have you seen Cooper Kupp go first overall at all?
No, it's been Jonathan Taylor repetitively in almost everything I've played in. But the drafter here is saying that he's going to go 2-3, probably running back, and he understands that Cooper Kupp is in the best position to repeat that season. And if he does, he's got a bonus at that number 1 spot.
The other thing I wanted to point out was this. I'll look at the ADP. And by the way, shout out to Darren Armani at Fantasy Mojo on Twitter, fantasymojo.com. He puts together not only all the ADP that we cite on this show, he puts together the pros versus Joes each and every year. Mark Andrews, ADP of 112. He goes 107 tonight, Ferrell, to Adrian Quintana right after Travis Kelce. I got to believe Quintana was going to take Kelce. Had he still been available, he says, to hell with it. I'm going tight end anyway. He gets Andrews at the 7th.
Mark Andrews does so many things for this football team, but he continues to catch balls, and that's a fine pick at the 7th. If you want Andrews on your team, that's where he would have to take him because he's sure not coming back to him.
All right, so let's talk about Scott Connor's team, an FFPC veteran, a KFFSC veteran from Dynasty and Chill. He goes DeAndre Swift and Dalvin Cook. Pretty solid value on DeAndre Swift because he's been climbing up in drafts. Yes. And he gets him at the 112 tonight. Dalvin Cook fell a little bit tonight. Normally has an ADP in this format of the 110. He gets him obviously at the 201, so about a third of a round value there. What do you make of the running back start in this FFPC best ball slim format?
I think it's fantastic. Swift is the comer at the position. He's the guy with 62 catches in limited work last year, a bigger year forthcoming. Then you take Cook. If you can make an argument that you're going to draft McCaffrey and that Eckler is a top 8 pick, why is not Cook amongst those players? Cook is a fantastic pick to start the second round. I don't think Scott Connor had in his mind that he would be going running back to start this draft, but he was given a gift, first with Swift and then with Cook. And, his erstwhile partner, Jay Reed, those guys can react on the fly and get off of their plan and reboot quicker than anyone. I'm impressed with this start.
Mike Evans, normally the wide receiver 7. Sigmund Bloom makes him the wide receiver 5 tonight at the 203. He has an ADP of 208. Ferrell, this is where I just always envision Mike Evans going as we get closer to the Kentucky main event, the FFPC main event. I just always envision that Evans would be going up higher in drafts. And now maybe Sigmund Bloom has started. Maybe he is, with apologies to @Tupacker on Twitter, maybe Sigmund Bloom is setting the ADP with FFPC here tonight as he takes Mike Evans at the 203. I think that's a strong pick, even though it's about a half round ahead of his ADP.
You can't overdraft Evans, and that's why you love to draft early in the Footballguys. The Footballguys is still considered early. If you're going to jump in as a player, it's time to get busy and start drafting because Evans was an value in the 3rd and sometimes 4th round early. He's now going, as Balky says, as you say, he's going exactly where he should go. So you're going to have to get your value from other players. But what a fine start to a team with Mixon and Evans. There's certainly no complaints about that. This looks like a Kentucky board so far, Balky, as we look in the 2nd and 3rd round. There's a lot of yellow on this.
Yeah, a lot of yellow on the board. A lot of teams loading up on receiver here. Derrick Henry going after Sigmund Bloom takes Mike Evans here in the 2nd round. Then we're seeing Devontae Adams, Javonte Williams here to Adrian Quintana in the middle of the 2nd round at the 206, CeeDee Lamb, and then Aaron Jones after that to Henry Muto and Jake Wade. Kyle Pitts, the 3rd tight end off the board. Kyle Pitts going to Shane Hallam here. Hallam takes Kyle Pitts He normally goes at the 208. That's about where he went tonight, 209. So I get that. T. Higgins, Deebo Samuel, and then your boy Darren Waller coming off the board about a half round early tonight as the first overall pick, team one tonight, Daniel Osorio, takes him. Darren Waller as the fourth tight end. I can get on board with Ferrell. I think I know what answer I'm going to get when I ask you, are you on board with Darren Waller as a late second round pick in this Best Ball Slim format?
Darren Waller is going to have a fantastic season. And of course, Mr. Osorio always said he would likely go running back at the 2-3 turn. And he did not go running back, but with the choices that the field that gave to him that he's now put with Cooper Kupp, he's off to a fantastic start. And yes, Waller and Hill that followed up the first pick of the third round. Balky Waller is 90 catches at 1.5. Even in my limited math skills, I think that's 135 points. Tyreek Hill will be over 100 catches for Miami. What a fantastic start.
Shane Hallam, who's picking from the fourth spot tonight, excuse me, said that his board went Jonathan Taylor, Christian McCaffrey, and Mark Andrews. He didn't think that he'd have the opportunity to draft Christian McCaffrey at the 4, but he gets him tonight. Just lead off his draft. He gets Kyle Pitts in the second, Keenan Allen in the third as we move on to the third round here. Ferrell, what do you make of, and obviously it's early and I know things can change, but in a best ball slim format, 20 rounds, where we have historically seen for best ball drafters in this format to put an emphasis on running backs early. Not every single team owner does this, but we've seen a lot of them do it. Only two teams starting off with a running back start, and that is David Garcia from the 9 spot, and then Scott Connor, a pro from the 12. But Scott Connor, yes, he is a pro, but listen, he's got as much experience in the FFPC as anybody among the pros this year for sure. What do you make of only two teams starting off with a pair of running backs in the first 2 rounds?
You know, the drafts take a life of their own, and you get away from ADP. As Two-Packer says, if you want an average team, draft to ADP. These guys are drafting their players they like. A team number 3 that takes T. Higgins in front of Deebo Samuel, Tyreek Hill, Michael Pittman, Allen. These are number 1 receivers on their club, and I appreciate T. Higgins. I don't really understand how you insert him in front of these other players, especially with the fact that he's coming off that shoulder injury and needs time to heal that and has to. That's an injury that can often reoccur and come back in the season. I don't particularly like that pick. However, everybody else seems to like him much more than I do in that second round. I think he's a better third round pick.
What is this more of a commentary, Ferrell, that you prefer de facto number 1 receivers on their teams rather than the number 2 on an elite offense? Is that the way you normally go in this format?
And the Bengals are always an elite offense, but they have, if you look previously in this draft, they have 2 first-round picks, Chase and Mixon, and those are elite players at their position. Plus, you have a quarterback that can move the ball around, and you have a Super Bowl hangover situation. You still got some questions on the offensive line, and you had a team that got hot at the right time. If you go back to the first few games of the season, Cincinnati was dealing with a record somewhere in the neighborhood of 500. So in a very tough division. So I have just a lot of questions about Higgins being a second-round pick.
Team 5 is getting some love from the YouTube chat right now. Our boy Aiden says, if Kamara doesn't get suspended and Rodgers peppers Aaron Jones with targets, he's loving the start for Team 5. Jamar Chase, Aaron Jones, and Alvin Kamara. He's got a pretty strong point here, as Team 5 is Henry Muto and Jake Wade, the FFPC Joe's squad. If Kamara is not suspended, look at all those targets already for Muto and Wade with Team 5 in the first 3 rounds. That's a lot of targets, man.
And we're playing best ball in a 17-week season. Is that correct, Balky? We're going 14 weeks plus 3.
Yep.
Plus whatever
well,
it is.
This will just be this is like sort of like varsity format where it's just total points.
Total points for 17 weeks. Yep. Well, then Kamara, even with a suspension, could be available for 2/3 of the season, and that would be a very, very happy time for team number 5.
Let's move into the third round. You have Osorio taking Tyreek Hill. Estadio Fantasies, Mauricio Gutierrez going with Michael Pittman, back-to-back receivers there, Samuel and Pittman, Leonard Fournette, Keenan Allen, and then Alvin Kamara. Nick Chubb goes to Evan Silva, followed by A.J. Brown to Adrian Quintana. James Conner is the second running back for Jared Smola. I know the DraftSharks guys like James Conner quite a bit, so no surprise to see him in the third round going to Jared Smola. DJ Moore after that. George Kittle, Travis Etienne, as we see where he goes tonight, slips a little bit here at the end of the third round. James Kearney is probably pretty happy to get Etienne there, followed by Mike Williams at the end of the third round. Ferrell, Travis Etienne, we talked a little bit about him on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour on Friday nights, which you can see right here on the FFPC YouTube channel, 10/9 Central every Friday. We've talked about Etienne a little bit. Are you surprised to see him climb up the boards in the FFPC Football Guys Players Championship, the best ball tournament, and now in Pros versus Joes, he falls all the way to the end of the third? What do you make of that?
Now, this is the steal of the third round, and if Team 11 hadn't chosen him, Connor would have probably started with his third running back. This is a fantastic ball player that, when none of us can wait for this season to start. None of us can wait for what's going to happen in the month of August with our drafting. But I got to tell you, man, there's probably no one that's looking forward to hitting on that field more than Travis Etienne and seeing what he can just bring to football. And my prediction is that Etienne's numbers will eclipse that of probably Williams. So he'll probably outscore Javonte Williams this year. Would be my prediction that who's going in the middle of the second round.
So you said the steal was the third of the third round was Etienne. I look at the pick before that, George Kittle. So I already said Sigmund Bloom normally takes, again, by my memory, a tight end with his first round pick every year. He gets a top 5 guy here in the late third. I think that's a really good value. Now, Kittle, as I look at this, he normally has an ADP of 401. You say, well, bulky, that's not that big of a deal then to get him at the end of the third. But keep in mind, we saw 2 tight ends off the board in the first 7 picks, and we saw 4 tight ends off the board in the first 2 rounds. So to see Kittle slip, again, all the way to the end of the third, I think that's nice value for Sigmund Bloom there.
I don't like Kittle there for the reason that we're a best ball league. And so I'm thinking 3 tight ends, and I think I can put 3 guys together later, especially at this 10 position down here on the end, get them at the turn. I think I could go with one of these very elite running backs, one of these very elite still wide receivers, and wait on my tight end position because I think I can put together 3 guys that would together have a chance of outscoring Kittle every week. Kittle is a great, great football player. I have questions at the quarterback position on just what it's going to look like. And we always have questions on what Kittle is asked to do. He carries that team. He's probably my favorite player in the NFL, but he's got a lot of responsibilities out there with the 49ers. So I don't know if success for Kittle means the same thing as it does for these other tight ends, which their success means lots and lots of catches.
Lots and lots of catches go off the board in the first half of the fourth round as we get 6 straight receivers. Marquise Brown to Scott Connor, Cortland Sutton to James Kearney, followed by Allen Robinson to Sigmund Bloom. Terry McLaurin goes to the number 9 pick. That was David Garcia. Jalen Waddle to Jared Smola, and then Brandon Cooks to Adrian Quintana. We're getting some conversation in the YouTube chat right now about Cortland Sutton versus Jerry Judy right now. Sutton goes off the board in the early part of the fourth round. Jerry Judy's still out there. And I'm going to say that guy's name, even though he hasn't been drafted, because, look, it's pros versus Joes. These guys are the primary round. They know what's going on. Cortland Sutton, though, this high above Jerry Judy. Ferrell, are you seeing the Denver wideouts in the same way where you could get on board with Cortland Sutton first and in the early fourth round?
Yes, I can, and I respect both players, but Sutton seems to me to be a guy that has shown it more often and shown it more consistently. So I'm favoring him. Judy is equally talented wide receiver with burst of production. Probably if I'm making a lineup, I like Sutton better than Judy. In the best ball, I could flip a coin. Somebody should draft him very soon.
Yes, exactly. Yes. Ezekiel Elliott goes off the board here tonight. He falls about a third of a round, maybe a half round tonight as Evan Silva snags him as his number 2 running back, getting Nick Chubb in the third, Ezekiel Elliott in the fourth here tonight. And then a couple of quarterbacks, Josh Allen off the board to Mudo and Wade here with the 408 pick. And then our first hookup of the night, the stacking of Justin Herbert and Keenan Allen in Los Angeles. Shane Hallam from Draft Countdown, make sure he gets that. Cam Akers pairs with Leonard Fournette, third and fourth round here for Chris Carlson. Deontay Johnson, the third consecutive receiver chosen by Mauricio Gutierrez from Estadio Fantasy, and then Lamar Jackson off the board, the final pick of the fourth round, the third quarterback off the board, as Daniel Osorio does not take a running back in the first 4 rounds, choosing instead for a couple of receivers, as well as a tight end and a quarterback. When Dave the Dizzle Gerzak used to broadcast this show with me, Ferrell, he used to say in this format, well, he only did the FFPC slim format 1 year, but he always said you can probably get away with an early quarterback. You can probably get away with an early tight end in this and still get a lot of success, but it's tough to get away with both. In other words, if you want to take an early tight end or an early quarterback, fine, but don't do both. Osorio does here. What's your philosophy on that of going elite quarterback and elite tight end within the first few rounds of this format?
It's probably the oldest law of high stakes fantasy football, and it depends what the other guys do and falling in behind that. But yes, the quarterbacks that are available in the double digit rounds will challenge Justin Herbert on scoring every week. So it was not necessary, especially after going tight end pits, not necessary to get a quarterback here with Ezekiel Elliott still on the board at that point in time. Is that right, Balky? Ezekiel was still on the board? No. Which way?
Elliott was off the board.
Elliott was off the board. So is Akers, Montgomery, and Bryce Hall. I think I would have rather had one of those running backs, especially when my lead running back and my only rostered running back so far is Christian McCaffrey. We don't have to talk about his history, but you understand why you need a couple of extra backs in that situation. So it'll be interesting to see if he can play catch up with some of the backs that are available, but they're beginning to thin out. The guys that you want to count on for a potential 20 carries, they're beginning to thin out, although the Bay Area still has 2 guys that are undrafted and looking for a home, and they're just one of them.
Yeah, you are correct. As we get into the 5th round here, let's talk about the first pick of the 5th round because it's getting some YouTube conversation going on right now with Osorio taking David Montgomery over Breece Hall. Our friend, the Louisville legend, Aaron Laser, is talking with our boy FFPC Aiden about the Breece Hall versus David Montgomery. They both said there's no way I could take David Montgomery over Breece Hall. Ferrell, do you see that in a similar way, as Hall should have been the pick over Montgomery for Osorio there?
You know, it just depends on what you think about Breece Hall's landing spot. I've seen people in Dynasty that didn't necessarily want part of him based on where he was. I don't see both. I don't see either offense hosting those running backs, adding much to their game. Montgomery has been a significant contributor as we move through the season. I think he is the clear bell cow running back for the Chicago Bears. Hall shares time with Carter in a backfield when Carter has came off a pretty good year last year. So I don't know. Fantastic players. It's understandable that they go back to back, and I think it's a little harsh to say there's no way you consider Montgomery over Hall there.
Speaking of back-to-back receivers go off the board after Hall is chosen by Gutierrez here in the 2 spot. Gabriel Davis to Chris Carlson, and then Shane Hallam takes Darnell Mooney as his number 2 receiver. Dalton Schultz off the board to Muto and Wade. He is their number 1 tight end as they follow up that Josh Allen pick with Dalton Schultz. And then, as Aiden said in the YouTube chat, an angel gets his wings because Travis Kelce has been stacked with Patrick Mahomes by EstablishTheRun.com's Evan Silva. He gets the Kelce Mahomes stack there. Will he add some Chiefs receivers to go with that stack? We shall see as the draft unfolds. Jerry Judy finally goes off the board to Adrian Quintana at the 507 tonight. And then the number 5 quarterback in tonight's draft is Kyler Murray, and he goes to Jared Smola. Elijah Mitchell to David Garcia as his number 3 running back. I believe he is the first team with 3 running backs tonight. We'll see how that unfolds with how he attacks the receiver and tight end positions going forward. A.J. Dillon is the number 2 running back drafted by Sigmund Bloom, followed by Rashad Bateman to James Kearney. And then we end up with Jalen Hurts, the final pick of the 5th round by Scott Connor. Jalen Hurts, Ferrell, normally has an ADP in the FFPC best ball contest, which is the same format as this, although you're, it's weird. So let's not get into Jalen Hurts yet. Ferrell, if you were in pros versus Joes, where, reminder, only one team will win anything, right? So you get second place, third place, you get nothing in this. First place gets a main event entry next year to the FFPC, $1,900 value. How do you weigh drafting versus 11 teams where you have to finish first versus drafting against, 1,000+ teams in the best ball tournament where you're trying to win a $200,000 grand prize? Is the strategy similar or is it a little bit different for you?
I'm going to be a little more conservative if I only have to beat 11 players, especially if I look across the board and see that I see some holes in some other lineups and I see availability of players. I would not have taken Hurts there. I would not have made that move, and then I wouldn't have followed up with matching his tight end. I don't necessarily think that's a winning choice, but I don't hold Hurts in the same respect that a lot of fantasy drafters do. And he does have a resume put together, and he is coming into a pivotal year as a quarterback, so I can understand it. I wouldn't have done it. It would make me very pleased to be these other teams without a quarterback, that I could get a position player and wait another round on a quarterback. I think that's not the move I would have made.
So let's talk about Hurts and Goddard here. The hookup that Scott Connor gets here. How important is stacking to you, Ferrell? Because we've already seen Herbert and Allen paired up with Shane Hallam. Evan Silva gets Mahomes and Kelsey here tonight from the 6th spot. And then Scott Connor getting the Eagles stack with Hurts and Goddard. How important is stacking in this format when you have to beat 11 other players?
Absolutely fantastic. I think that's going to be the key to winning here. And the most interesting stack that you could put together is probably the one out of Kansas City, because even with the fact that we've seen Smith-Schuster go off the board, there's still a good mix of wide receivers, and we've already got a Kansas City stack moving with Mahomes and Kelsey. The Philadelphia stack is less intriguing because of the type of offense they run, and he's certainly got the two players there that we're going to stack. I see that the opportunity for a Ram stack or a Raider stack with at the quarterback position has moved on with what happened with Lamar Jackson in the 4th round with their number 1 team. So it seems like I like it a lot better than any of the guys here do.
Juju Smith-Schuster, Amon-Ra St. Brown after that. Amon-Ra St. Brown in the 6th round getting some love. Back-to-back Lions as TJ Hawkinson goes to David Garcia after that. Hawkinson, the number 1 tight end for David Garcia this year. And then a ton of receivers again. DK Metcalf to Smola, Adam Thielen to Quintana, Christian Kirk to Silva, and then Chris Godwin goes off the board to Muto and Wade. Josh Jacobs, your guy from the Raiders. Shane Hallam grabs him there. Joe Burrow, another stack here as we get the T. Higgins, Joe Burrow stack from Chris Carlson. Amari Cooper is the number 4 receiver chosen by Mauricio Gutierrez from Estadio Fantasy from the 2 spot. And I believe we are on the last pick of the 6th round here. But let's go back to DK Metcalf. How the mighty have fallen. Remember this guy last year with Russell Wilson was like talked about as a 2nd round pick, for sure a 3rd round pick. And now he's fallen to the 6th round because we don't know if it's going to be Geno Smith or Drew Lock. We just know it's not going to be Russell Wilson. Ferrell has the dislike for DK Metcalf, has the distaste for DK Metcalf fantasy stats this year. Has it finally reached a fever pitch where he becomes a value here for Jared Smola in the mid-6th round?
Yes, Jared, great job. DK Metcalf is my number 3 receiver all day long, Balky. Put the ball in his hands. It doesn't matter necessarily what quarterback's going to do it. Metcalf makes things happen, an elite athlete amongst elite athletes in the NFL. Metcalf will be asked to do great things to help whoever's under center in Seattle. I think it's perfect pick.
I'm a little, and I continue to try to follow the money on this when we look at the Chiefs wide receivers, right? Marquez Valdez-Scantling got a ton of money from the Chiefs. mean, Juju Smith-Schuster, I don't even think he got $2 million on a one-year deal. He goes tonight at the 602, and you say, wow, that seems early. Well, not really. He's the 601 in FFPC best ball drafts right now. And James Kearney gets him here at the 602 as his number 4 receiver. I continue to be a little bit nervous about that pick there, Ferrell. Is my nervousness misplaced? Should I be a believer in Juju Smith-Schuster in the 6th round?
Yes, you should. We've seen a player here that has done it before and done it with less. Anyone that's worked with any offensive system and had success, no matter how good or how designed that offense was to his skill set, steps into a better situation when he ends in Kansas City. And what they're paying for here, Balky, in Marquez Valdes-Scantling's situation is the elite speed and what kind of player they can make him, the big hits. But what we're paying for in fantasy football is those repetitive catches from Juju Smith-Schuster, the steady eddies that at the end of the year looks like 85 to 90, 1,100 yards, 8 touchdowns. And at that point in time, if you can get anywhere near that out of the 6th round, you're going to be sitting in some mighty tall cotton. Smith-Schuster is going to have big numbers. Probably yards per catch will be at the top of the league and will probably take the top off of competing defenses. And it will be very, very we're almost looking like a Mike Williams versus a Keenan Allen situation. Both great receivers and both keys to each other being success. What they have here in Kansas City, and I never can quit talking about this, but you've got a tight end that clears out that middle, and it makes things so beautiful for Schuster. One of them's going to be open all the time.
Chris Godwin was the selection for Muto and Wade here in the 6th round tonight. The last report I've seen on Chris Godwin, beg your pardon, was from Greg Allman, who covers the Buccaneers at Athletic. He said he wouldn't be surprised if Godwin starts the regular season on the PUP list. Godwin is coming off that ACL tear in week 15, and it almost sounds like he's for certain to miss some games this year. However, when you look at trying to win this league and what Muto and Wade have been doing here, a lot of targets in Chase, Jones, and Kamara with their first 3 picks. They get the first quarterback off the board, Josh Allen, Dalton Schultz, who you and I have talked about being an underrated tight end this year. And then you get Chris Godwin here in the 6th round. For him to come on late at the end of the season, that could be the mid-season trade deadline, although there's no trading in this league, trade deadline, so to speak, player that puts you over the edge if Godwin's crushing it at the end of the season. How do you view Chris Godwin this year and how he fits in to the strategy that we're seeing from Muto and Wade tonight?
I love him. And, earlier in the summer, we talked about the situation that if you build your team, you could be in a position to stack Godwin and Gage, paying exactly what you should in the draft for them. Team number 5 had that opportunity here and passed on it when they went Elijah Moore in the 7th. We talked about Godwin, an injury that heals in its own sweet time. But we also talked about his toughness as a player. And anyone who's forgotten his contribution can look at some highlights from Tampa's last season and realize why you should be in business with Godwin. In this format, I think that's a great pick. I would have probably been tempted to put Gage with him, and then I feel less nervous about it. But really, what have you got to be nervous about? He'll be back on the field soon enough, and you'll be very happy to have him.
There's always one team in every draft, that does it. And tonight it was Daniel Osorio from the 1 spot. He is the first team to double up on tight ends. He gets Darren Waller in the 2nd. He gets Zach Ertz in the 6th. Neither one of those guys is a stack on this team. In fact, I'm not seeing any stacks. I mean, there's a quasi stack in there if you count J.K. Dobbins in the 7th. But what do you make of that start right here? So we talk about maybe you can get away with one or the other, elite quarterback early, elite tight end early, but probably not both. Well, he's like, screw you, Balky and Ferrell. I'm going to take 2 tight ends and a quarterback in the first 6 rounds and throw caution to the wind. I'm trying to win this damn thing. And he gets Ertz and Waller. A lot of targets there, a lot of fantasy points. It's going to kind of depend upon how he fills in running backs and receivers in this mid part of the draft when there's still some non-lottery tickets out there, right? I mean, because this team is set up for success, but he's got to hit on his mid-round picks.
There's no bigger fan of Zach Ertz than I am. However, with the addition of Trey McBride to that offense, I wonder how much could bleed into his opportunities. I don't think it's a lot, but you never know. Now, take a look at Lamar Jackson, who is looking to have a career year and vault himself into being the highest paid quarterback in the NFL right now. He'll have to top Watson's deal, but perhaps he can. Dobbins added as the first pick of 7th round. Receiver injury and running back injury are two different things. A receiver can seem to get back into the flow quicker than a running back can. It's an interesting build on team number one. Let's don't sell them out yet, but I'm not 2 tight ends, a quarterback, and an injured running back's not the way I want to start.
Russell Wilson.
Even though I love the players.
Right.
Even though I love all the players.
Russell Wilson, the second pick of the 7th round to Mauricio Gutierrez. Dawson Knox, the first tight end chosen by Chris Carlson, followed by Antonio Gibson, the 3rd running back off the board for Shane Hallam. Then a bunch of receivers in the middle part of the 7th round again. Elijah Moore to Mudo and Wade. Russell Gage to Evan Silva. Hunter Renfrow is the 5th consecutive receiver going to Adrian Quintana. And then Drake London goes to Jared Smola after that is his number 4 receiver. Alan Lazard to David Garcia, followed by Tony Pollard to Sigmund Bloom. Miles Sanders to James Kearney, and then Devontae Smith ends up the 7th round. And Devontae Smith is interesting, Ferrell, because that is 3 straight Eagles.
How about that Eagles stack?
Yeah, yes, fly Eagles fly for Scott Connor. I don't think he's an Eagles fan either. But
he is this year.
He is this year. Exactly, yeah. He gets the Jalen Hurts, Dallas Goedert, Devontae Smith stack there to complete round 7. One of the things that Tarek Bryant Jr. in the YouTube chat right now is pointing out, he's not really understanding drafting naked quarterbacks. In other words, quarterbacks that you don't have a receiver or tight end already on their team. You look at what Mauricio Gutierrez did with Russell Wilson in the 7th round. No other Broncos on his squad. You look at Kyler Murray with Jared Smola in the 8th spot tonight. No other Cardinals on his squad. You can make a case for the Trey Lance pick for Sigmund Bloom, which we'll get into in a little bit. Although, no, I take that back. He has George Kittle on that team. Tom Brady, though, to James Kearney. No other Buccaneers on that squad as of right now. Do you feel like you have to, and I know stacking is a relatively new thing in season-long fantasy football. It's really, I think it hit a new high last year, Ferrell, but it's really, I'm seeing so much talk on fantasy Twitter about it now. Like, you have to do it. Do you believe that you have to stack a player or get a quarterback, receiver, quarterback, tight end stack in order to win a national contest or pros versus Joes like what we're doing tonight?
It helps, but I will remind our reviewer that we've still got we've still got a lot of rounds of drafting to go, and there's very good players that are available. I noticed here in the 8th round, Tom Brady, as you mentioned, Balky. There's no other Bucks on that roster, but there's good Bucks still to be had. And another thing you can do, he termed it the naked quarterback. You might be busting up someone else's stack. There's some guys that are building a team, and you want to say, hey, enough of that. He's got very, very powerful players. Let's deny him this player because we sure won't want to see explosive players on that club. Now we're beginning to see some 2 quarterbacks going. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, now things are heating up here as we get into the 7th and now 8th round drawing to a close here as we cover this live on the FFPC YouTube channel here. Russell Gage goes roughly about a round, a little bit more than a round after Chris Godwin. Does that feel right to you, Ferrell? Because I know in the Footballguys Players Championship right now, they're like back-to-back. Like, it's Godwin and then the next pick, Russell Gage via ADP. Now, tonight, we see a round separating them. Is that how you view Godwin versus Gage this year? And you pointed out, too, Mudo and Wade had the opportunity to get Godwin and Gage on the same team. They chose not to. They went with Elijah Moore instead.
That's how I would have done it. And they might say, hey, Ferrell, you just talked about drafting a team's number 1 receiver, and Elijah Moore could certainly be that with the New York Jets. Why do we want to put Russell Gage, who might be the number 3 receiver? Why would we want him in Tampa Bay? Well, the answer is Tom Brady versus young Zach Wilson. But, yeah, I can understand I can understand what they're doing. And yeah, I think that's about right. If I got Godwin, I feel really, really good if Gage comes back to me, because we're all optimistic that Godwin will return. But perhaps he does return, and he seems to be compromised. He seems to continue to get hurt. He might push it and return too early and re-injure himself. So I like the insurance, especially when it's Tom Brady at quarterback. The same situation with another quarterback is not as important. With Tom Brady, it's very important for me.
Let's compare and contrast here a couple of teams. We're going to talk about Adrian Quintana's team from the 7 spot and Sigmund Bloom's team from the 10 spot. Quintana gets tight end and running back, Mark Andrews and Javonte Williams to start. Then he's hitting on receivers, pounding the receivers, 6 straight receivers. And then you have Sigmund Bloom over in the 10 spot, who's sort of dancing around all picks, a true rainbow draft. Running back, receiver, tight end, receiver, running back, quarterback. Like he's sort of balancing out his roster. Is there value in both of these approaches, Ferrell? In other words, is there value in just having uber dominance in one position and then sort of filling in the other positions later? Or is there value in sort of, dancing around everything, trying to be balanced everywhere? Is one strategy better than the other in this format?
Those are some mighty good receivers with team number 7, but he'll have to remember that I think, Balky, correct me if I'm wrong, but only 4 of them can score in a given week. And I like all of them. And he's got a running back, Williams, that has pressure in his own backfield for some type of timeshare for Gordon. Gordon's still available, so we'll see if that goes to him. But no, I think he looks like he's drafted in Kentucky, and he's welcome to come here. And with this team where you must start for, he's in good shape.
Yeah.
But with the dual flex, I'm yet to understand this, especially as we notice the quarterbacks beginning to fly off the board a little more aggressively than what I was expecting.
I'm kind of with you on that. In fact, we saw 5 quarterbacks go off the board alone in round 8. Just looking at the ADP data of what we normally see in this format. After the 8th round, there's usually 11 quarterbacks chosen total, and we got a ton of them going on right now. Even Aaron Rodgers here now in the 9th round. So I wouldn't say they're getting pushed up significantly. But it is notable that they are getting pushed up more so than what we normally see in the best ball tournament draft. Let's get into the 8th round here. Some of these picks. Brady goes to Kearney here. Trey Lance to Sigmund Bloom. Trey Lance, to me, Ferrell, that is, and he pairs him up with George Kittle, obviously. That is I'm trying to win this league, not taking second place, right? If you're drafting in a Kentucky main event, FFPC main event, doesn't that strike you as like, look, I'm going to live or die by Trey Lance here, because if he crushes it, I'm probably winning this league. If he doesn't, I'm going to have a lot of work to do.
I don't think if he crushes it, you're likely winning this league. What would crush, Balky, in your mind, what would successful season for Trey Lance mean? Is it that he would be the number 1 scoring quarterback? Will he be in the top 5 scoring quarterbacks?
That top 5 would be crushing it for sure. I think top 10 is good, but it's not crushing it. But I think Trey Lance, a guy who is picked quarterback 10 tonight, he normally goes in this format. Now he has moved up a little bit. Normally quarterback 11 in this format. So I think if he finishes top 5, that's crushing it. It's very subjective.
Yeah, it is. And there were Prescott, Stafford, and Carr go later in the round. And I'm still waiting to see what Trey Lance is going to do in the NFL. Dak Prescott would have been my pick there.
Let's get into our first interview of the evening, ladies and gentlemen. He is the managing partner or a managing partner for Draft Countdown. You follow him on Twitter at Shane P. Hallam. Draft Countdown on Twitter at Draft Countdown, NFL Draft, fantasy football, college football analyst, and the co-host of the Devy Marketplace podcast, writer for Dynasty League Fantasy Football, and a Steel City insider at 24/7. Shane Hallam, longtime fan of the show. We're longtime fans of Shane Hallam. Welcome to the broadcast.
Who isn't?
Oh, thanks for bringing it back, guys. Good show so far. It's been a fun draft, so I'm having a good time.
So I misspoke before the draft because I was getting tomorrow's show ready today, and I somehow thought you were in tomorrow's show, not tonight's. So I apologize for that in the YouTube chat earlier. But you're hitting cleanup tonight, and you're cleaning up the running backs. I mean, you're hitting on some good receivers here. Shane, how do you think the draft is going so far for you? We talked about earlier in the broadcast, what your top three were. You were surprised to get McCaffrey at 4, but certainly pleasantly surprised, right?
I was. It basically, which I think is a good thing for me. I'm an over planner. I over plan, and that's usually why I've never, have not come close to winning. I'm glad Darren keeps inviting me back despite that. But I was like, okay, Taylor and McCaffrey will be gone. I'm gonna go Mark Andrews. I'm gonna get Lamar Jackson. I'm gonna get Rashad Bateman. I think that they're gonna be a breakout offense this year. So I think it might have been to my benefit for McCaffrey to fall to 4. I had to toss out the plan, and now I've been living a little more by the seat of my pants and by feel, and I think it's turning out to be a pretty good team, considering.
What about the Kyle Pitts pick in the second round? Was that predicated on, oh my goodness, Kelsey and Andrews were 2 of the first 7 picks of this draft? If I want an elite tight end, I might not be able to wait till my 3rd round pick. I better grab one here, or how did that factor into your decision making?
I just really feel like after those top 4 tight ends, after Kelsey, Andrews, Pitts, Waller, maybe Kittle, just a step down because of the injury history. Like, I don't love anyone else. There's no one else that I feel confident about. I'd probably wait till the end of the draft and take a bunch. So to me, it's, if I'm going Christian McCaffrey, if he stays healthy for the whole season, right? I feel like he has such big upside. And I think Kyle Pitts is the ultimate upside tight end. He could be the tight end 1 this year very easily with his talent, with how bad the Falcons defense is. They're going to have to throw a ton. So to me, it was when Aaron Jones, I was going to take Aaron Jones if he fell one more pick. And when he went off the board, then I was going Kyle Pitts all the way.
Kyle Pitts is a wonderful pick, guys. What surprised me, after the Kittle pick, we went a round and a half before Dalton Schultz was selected, and I have been elevating Dalton Schultz in all my drafts. If he's there early in the 4th, I'm grabbing him. Were you surprised about that? Or when you listed your tight end, Shane, Schultz was not amongst them, and for me, he is. Are you just not a Schultz guy?
I think it's fair. I think the value in the 5th was pretty good. Like, I think Schultz is a volume, he's going to be a volume tight end receiver. And, without a clear wide receiver 2, I do like him. I have him in a lot of dynasty leagues. I'm happy about that in the FFPC, but, he's just not exciting, right? Like, I don't think you're going to get the weeks that you're going to get huge outputs from Dalton Schultz. It's going to be volume based. And that for a best ball, I think it's fine, but I'd rather not. I kind of like that sweet spot where he goes, where some of those receivers are.
Shane, once you took Keenan Allen in the 3rd round, did you make up your mind that if Herbert made it to you in the 4th, you were taking him?
Yeah, it was queued up. I would have taken him over Josh Allen. I think Herbert's going to be the QB1 this year.
Oh, really? So regardless of it, even if you didn't have Keenan Allen, Herbert is still the pick over Allen. Okay.
I think he's still the pick over. Now, would I have taken Herbert if I had not had Allen in the 4th? Probably not. But I right now, I think Herbert is the most talented quarterback in the NFL. Mahomes does some amazing things. I think Josh Allen does some amazing things. I think the arm talent of Justin Herbert is out of this world. I think people kind of underrate him because the team hasn't been to the playoffs, or we haven't seen that. And they're in a tough division. Like, I really like stacking up that division, which I've tried to do in this draft with Herbert, with Allen, with Josh Jacobs, with Sky Moore, with MVS. I think getting a lot of that division, it's going to be 40-point games every week in those divisional games. I think that's a way to go too.
We saw the report. Was it today or yesterday about the Raiders potentially going with a running back by committee with Jacobs and Zamir White and Kenyon Drake if he's healthy. But I mean, Shane, I guess that, that kind of goes out the window for you when you consider, okay, now I'm getting Josh Jacobs here in the late 6th round. I don't care if it's a committee or not. This is a smart choice for me here.
Like, Josh Jacobs is just, it's an ugly pick. It's a pick you just hate. Like, I hate
but in the late
I know Ferrell likes him, but yeah, in the late 6th, I couldn't pass him up. It's so many guaranteed carries. For like RB2 between him and Gibson, I think I'm going to get a solid RB2 week every single week. I don't have to take many more running backs in this draft. Like, I think I'm going to be fine at running back. If Christian McCaffrey stays healthy, I think I'm good. So, like, Josh Jacobs does that. I think McDaniel's going to like him a lot more than we think, because he is the type of running back that Josh McDaniels likes to trot out there and get those touchdowns.
He's going to like him with that fullback trotting out in front of him, too. That's the biggest thing that could have had to happen to Jacobs. And, in a situation where Jacobs is playing out his contract, there's a great deal of motivation for this player to get on the field and stay on the field. And he's got a great running buddy in that backfield. It's going to look different, and it's going to look like Jacobs truly has a plan to make him successful. We've seen Jacobs be drafted. Jacobs moved up the draft board last year based on the fact that you had a coach that promised that he was going to be an excellent player and lots of opportunity. They're quiet about it this year, and whoever is quietly listening can value from rostering Jacobs, especially in the 6th round.
Shane, you're on the clock here in the 10th round. Who are you thinking?
Yeah, it's tough because the receiver's just going fast and furious. But I'm going to pick once again, I'm going to stick to the AFC West there. And I'm going to pick who I think is the number 2 receiver for the Denver Broncos. I'm going to take Tim Patrick here. Mm-hmm. I think he's better than Jerry Judy. I think he has been. And I think people just, because of the draft capital, are too scared to say it. He stayed healthier. He's been consistent. I think Russell Wilson's going to like him a lot. So it's a wide receiver 52 off the board. I think, it's fair. Maybe it's a little bit early, but I feel like all the receivers just getting pushed up in this draft. And, I'll take the guys that I like that I think have some upside. And once again, when the Broncos play the Chiefs, I got, 3 receiver options. When they play, the Chargers, I have both those offenses. I have every offense now in the AFC West.
This is interesting, Shane. Now you are taking Tim Patrick roughly about 2 rounds, maybe a little bit more than 2 rounds ahead of his ADP. However, you are in FFPC Pros versus Joe's Veteran. This is a get your guys draft, right? I mean, when you're dealing with 6 really talented high stakes Joes, and then 5 other pros, obviously, who do this for a living like you look at this spot right here, the receivers getting pushed up. Tim Patrick makes a lot of sense, even though you're going up and grabbing them. It's a reach. It's a bit of a reach.
Yeah, I know it absolutely is. I really felt that way. After I took that 3rd running back, we talked about the Jacobs value. I think Gibson was a value because everyone's taking receivers so early. So there comes a point you got to take receivers. So at some point you got to reach for the receivers a little bit. I'm happy that I got the value on the running backs in the 6th and 7th that I did. I'd rather reach now than reach for the receivers at those rounds.
Shane, final question here for you. Over at Draft Countdown, the NFL draft never stops with you guys. In fact, you're already working on, and you have been, not like you just started, you have been working on 2023 NFL draft prep, right?
Yeah. I was working on my rankings today. We're relaunching in mid-August, so I'll have a 7-round 2023 mock before the end of August, and I'll actually have an updated 7-round 2024 mock draft and a 3-round 2025 mock draft by the end of August. So if you want, if you want to hop in there and see the guys coming up in the future, you can check it out there.
Well, after Aaron Rodgers retires, I'm going to be highly interested and highly invested in the NFL draft as a Green Bay Packers fan. So I will definitely be checking out Draft Countdown for all that information and more. Follow it on Twitter at Draft Countdown. More importantly, we follow you on Twitter, Shane, at Shane P. Hallam. Thank you so much for joining the broadcast tonight, and good luck the rest of the way, not only in this draft, but in all your leagues this year, my friend.
No, thank you. Thanks so much. And have a good one. Thanks for having me.
Shane Hallam, ladies and gentlemen. Shane P. Hallam, as Dave the Dizzle Gerzak always pointed out. Not Shane Hallam, Shane P. Hallam. Always good to hear from him. Usually drafts in the first iteration of the Pros versus Joes every single year. One of the things we didn't get to with him, Ferrell, Sky Moore and Marquez Valdez-Scantling with the 8-9 picks here. So even though he doesn't have Mahomes, there's still value in grabbing receivers like that on an offense like that this year.
Yeah, he's taking the storm out of team number 6, so good for him. Moore and Valdez-Scantling, a lot of opportunity there.
All right, so let's move on here. I want to get to our next guest shortly, but I just want to see if there's anything I want to touch on in the 9th round. Okay, here's one. Ferrell, 9th round. Robert Woods goes to David Garcia.
Yeah.
2 picks later, his real-life teammate, Treylon Burks, goes to James Kearney here in the 9th round. If you had your druthers, which one is ranked higher for you? Is it Woods or is it Burks this year in this type of format?
It is no contest. Robert Woods will be the number 1 receiver for the Tennessee Titans by far. And he's a perfect player that 90 catch seasons when he was with the Rams with Jared Goff at quarterback. And, this is a winning team in Tennessee. You take a look, the Tannehill yet to go in this draft. Tannehill as a Titan is 30-13. Woods goes to a team where he is a middle of the field receiver with a team that has not celebrated the tight end position and does not necessarily have running backs on the field that catch a lot of balls. Robert Woods is in a wonderful position, and to realize that he could be picked in this format in the 9th round in front of second and third wide receivers on other teams, that's one of my favorite picks of the entire draft.
One of my favorite interviews in tonight's program is about to happen right now. This gentleman is picking first tonight in the draft. He is a champion, a league champion of the FFPC tournament, the FFPC main event, the Footballguys Players Championship, FFPC Dynasty drafts, FFPC satellite leagues. He's done it all, and he might add first place in Pros versus Joes tonight. Want to welcome in, picking from the one spot. It is Daniel Osorio. Daniel, welcome into the broadcast tonight, man.
Hey, how you doing? This is not Daniel. This is his partner, Nico.
Oh, Nico, I apologize. I didn't read the name. I just saw SVFFC, and I just assumed it was Daniel. I see the Nico now. Nico, how's the draft going tonight for you guys?
It was going good. It's not my particular way to draft, so we did a little collaboration before and went ahead and went Cooper Kupp with the first pick.
Yeah.
And this was made, like, you guys talked about this. You're like, okay, we're not going Taylor. We're not going McCaffrey. You might have wanted to, but it ultimately Kupp won out. Why?
We wanted to go Kupp just based on how he did last year. Even Allen Robinson there last year, he had almost 200 targets last year, Cooper Kupp. Even if that goes down by 50 targets, that's still a huge upside in our opinion. In saying that Jonathan Taylor or Christian McCaffrey or even Austin Eckler going with the first pick, we said, we're going to grab our fists and say we're going to go Cooper Kupp with this first pick and really solidify receiver positions in this draft.
Nico, you really surprised me when you went tight end and wide receiver, but I certainly love the players that you picked, and I was kind of surprised that they were there. And I'm from Louisville, Kentucky, so we can't argue with Lamar Jackson. And then looking at your draft, and I'll save some for Balky, but I'm thrilled with what you've done 8 through 11.
Yeah, for sure. We wanted to go Darren Waller to say, hey, maybe we can get Derek Carr later on with
you sure did
with our 8th round pick. We got Derek Carr, and we said, look, Lamar Jackson runs the ball, so we're going to go like Lamar Jackson. That's kind of like our quarterback running back philosophy combined into one person in Lamar Jackson. And you get to the 7th round where we still have J.K. Dobbins on the board, even though his ACL is in question. So we said, look, Baltimore is a run first team, and it says whoever's on the goal line, it's either going to be J.K. Dobbins taking it up the middle or Lamar Jackson keeping it in for the touchdown. Either way, in this best ball format, we get the points.
Was Tyreek Hill a target for you guys at all in his new surroundings in Miami as you guys took him with the 301, or was that a situation where, man, this guy should not still be out there? We got to grab him here.
He was not in our sights at all, and him still being there in the late second, going into the 3rd round, we're like, dude, we have to grab this guy. He can take the top off of any defense in this league and can get you those points no matter what offense he's in. And I feel like he has enough surrounding him to make him the main focus in that offense. So I feel like we had to grab him there.
One of the things that we were talking about, and there's a lot of YouTube chatter on this in the conversation there with everybody watching this draft, was your 501 pick. You had the opportunity to take Breece Hall. You went with David Montgomery. Did you guys talk about Breece Hall there as a possibility? And if not, why was Montgomery the pick for you?
We surprisingly didn't talk about grabbing Breece Hall. And I'll tell you why. It's because we went with Montgomery. It's because we felt like, he's the back in Chicago. You still have Justin Fields who's adjusting to the NFL level play. And then if you get a guy like Montgomery who can help a guy out like Justin Fields in Chicago, it's just going to be a point house for Montgomery the whole year, in our opinion.
You were also the first team, I believe. Yeah, you're the first team to go with 2 tight ends first before anybody else had them with Waller and Ertz. Can you talk a little bit about the mentality there of not only grabbing 2 tight ends within your first 6 picks, but also grabbing an elite quarterback there, maybe setting yourself back at other positions, but setting you up for success at the quarterback and tight end position.
Certainly. We went ahead and got Waller because, like we said, we had our mindset on grabbing Carr later, but we believe the addition of Davante Adams will really open up the playing field for Darren Waller and Hunter Renfrow as well. It's a lot for a defense to handle Josh Jacobs going up the middle, whatever running back situation's going there in Las Vegas, where you have Davante Adams and Hunter Renfrow on the outside, where Darren Waller is just going to eat you up in the middle. So we said that's a big those are points on the table for us. And with Zach Ertz, with DeAndre being out with suspension, we just said Zach Ertz is going to be a huge component in that offense down in Arizona.
Nico, Hudson Curran-Reed, who often comes in as our resident Ivy League professor to comment in the chat room on our shows, he referred to Ronald Jones as the guy that can save a zero running back philosophy. And I guess starting with your running back in the 5th round, that would qualify as zero running back. Not only do I like Ronald Jones in the 11th, I very much like Singletary in the 9th. It's very cool what you did here in building these running backs, especially in this format. I think you got some guys that are going to score. And, Balky's going to keep you around and we get you live for probably 2 picks. So this is pretty fantastic. But what are you thinking about next position? I see a lot of guys I really like.
Oh, I see a bunch of guys I really like. And like you were saying with the Ronald Jones pick, it really sets up our running backs to say whether, whether Kansas City is going to like Hilaire or not. It really sets us up to have those points with Ronald Jones. As far as I know, as what we're going into, because I'm not on the phone with them right now as we speak. As far as I know, what I would do in this situation is probably go receiver here, in my opinion, and grab a guy and McCole Hardman, in my opinion, because they're going to need that replacement for Tyreek Hill in that offense. And McCole Hardman, to me, is like a mini Tyreek Hill.
All right, so you guys, I believe, are on deck here right now, and it looks like it's going to be you're hoping McCole Hardman for one of the picks. What about the other one, Nico? Would you want to go receiver here? Would you want to add another running back? Because you obviously already got the 2 tight ends, the 2 quarterbacks. I mean, you're looking pretty good for the first half of the draft there. Would this be a receiver pick here for you?
It's looking like that because we only have 3 receivers right now. We wanted to go into this draft drafting more receivers, but the guys that we wanted ended up getting taken earlier. Like the guy you had on here before saying a lot of receivers were getting taken early. So that kind of persuade our draft a little bit, but I think we're happy of where everything ended up.
You are on the clock.
But I think we should go receiver here. I'm not going to be surprised if we take anything other than receiver, but one of these picks should be receiver.
Should be a receiver, yeah. Because you'll be as surprised as all of us here as we keep you away from your team, and I do apologize for that, but I love that you're popping in. One of the things you said earlier with the Waller pick, with the Waller pick, you said we like taking Waller at the end of the 2nd round because we plan on taking Derek Carr later. When you guys are drafting in the main event for $1 million this year in the FFPC, do you bring that mentality aboard where you're willing to take a tight end or receiver early because you believe you're going to get the quarterback later? And we'll use the Waller Carr as an example here.
Yeah, we've been doing that since last year, especially in best ball formats.
Now you are on the clock.
Because in best ball formats, when we believe we have the right stack, it can really set us up for long-term points, in my opinion, because if Derek Carr is getting points, Darren Waller is getting points. Mm-hmm. And we were actually we had our eyes set on getting Jacobs, but he didn't fall into us in the 6th. We ended up just getting Zach Ertz instead of Josh Jacobs. But if we would have had that Las Vegas stack, I believe it would have set us up for a real Las Vegas stack.
Let's talk about the final pick of the 12th round here. You guys end up going with Tyler Allgeier, a guy that has been pointed out in the Footballguys drafts I've been watching this week facilitating. He keeps climbing up and climbing up and climbing up. You guys get him here as your number 5 running back, because you get Darrell Henderson in the 1301. So those are 2, I don't want to say like upside guys, but in the right scenario, these guys could really take off for you in this format.
Oh, most definitely, especially with a new quarterback in Atlanta, and especially with Cam Akers coming back from an injury where it was kind of iffy for him in the playoffs last year, and Darrell Henderson mostly getting most of the playing time last year. With these 2 running back picks, it's just all upside for us, in our opinion.
Nico, final question before we let you get back to the draft here tonight. As you look at this, we were talking about the receivers getting pushed up a little bit tonight. We talked a little bit about the quarterbacks getting pushed up tonight. Is there anything else, any specific teams or anything that you're seeing in the draft that you're looking at that you didn't expect to see tonight that I don't want to say caught you off guard, because you're a high-stakes fantasy football player. Nothing catches you off guard, but something that maybe you weren't planning on seeing tonight happening in front of you?
I did not expect us, like you said, back when Tyreek Hill, I did not expect Tyreek Hill to fall that far, especially when the receivers were getting taken so early. And a guy for like Tyreek Hill to be that far, the only intangibles that affect that are, of course, him going to Miami and him getting paid, which alters people's perspective on the player.
Nico, listen, good luck in winning the $1 million in the FFPC main event this year. And if you can't get that done, I hope you win this league, because then you get the free entry to try to win the grand prize in the FFPC main event in 2023 as well. You are a gentleman and a scholar and a good sport for hopping aboard and making a couple of picks on air tonight. We really appreciate it. Good luck the rest of the way, man.
Appreciate it. You guys have a good night, huh?
Thank you so much. Nico, from Team 1, Daniel Osorio's partner, the SBFFC squad, picking first tonight. Shocking, I don't want to say shocking the world, because I have seen Cooper Kupp go with the first overall pick in a lot of drafts this year, but they get him tonight with the 101. Love it. And as we just talked with them, 3 straight running backs, Jones, Allgeier, and Darrell Henderson here. Ferrell, let's talk about Tyler Allgeier for a second. And we talked a little bit about this with Nico. He has been rising up draft boards right now, and you and I have been talking about him on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour seemingly since before the NFL draft. And this is a player that high stakes owners, the redraft owners, are really warming up to as he is climbing up the ADP.
Yeah, and he's in a situation where he's going to play better at the end of the year probably than he will at the beginning, as they look for a running back. A rookie running back is no longer a rookie after Halloween. So, you've got a player here that you
is that the cutoff? You're no longer a rookie.
That's it.
Halloween?
No longer a rookie. It's trick or treat by the end of October, Boggy. And it should be. And Allgeier, interesting player to look at. I was drafting with a friend this week. We chaired a team in the Footballguys, and I described Allgeier to him, and I don't think my teammate really understood who the player was. He played at Brigham Young. You need to look at him and find the type player that he can remind you of in the NFL. I've got my own idea about him, but I don't want to spoil the pool of possibilities. But Allgeier looks like an NFL running back, and he can catch the ball, and he is explosive with the ball, and he doesn't fumble the ball. I like that, all those aspects of a running back getting to play and staying on the field.
I want to talk a little bit about, as the 12th round has come to a completion and the 13th round about to come to a completion, about a player that Mauricio Gutierrez took from Estadio Fantasy at the 12-11 pick, the rookie out of North Dakota, Christian Watson for the Green Bay Packers. Ferrell, I felt like I was defending this guy in the pre-draft process, and then after the Packers took him, to not only, everybody on our show, but also my local Northeast Wisconsin sports talk radio show. I feel like I've been defending him to the hilt. And now, as we're getting closer and closer to not only KFFSC live main events, but FFPC live main events and the NFL kickoff, I feel like I'm kind of like pulling back on him a little bit, because now I think expectations for him are growing to a point where I don't know if he's going to pay off on him. 12th round in a best ball tournament, sure, I like him there. But I think we also have to understand that he is a raw rookie who will get worked in with like jet sweeps and stuff like that. But I still don't believe that he's a fantasy league winner by any means this year. In other words, if you get him in a double-digit round, you feel like you can ignore the receiver position for the rest of the draft because he's your ace in the hole or whatever like that. He's going to have his moments this year, which is fine for a best ball tournament. Footballguys main event, I get a little bit more nervous about.
Well, here he's the 6th receiver on this team,
right?
And he is paired with Aaron Rodgers, and I think this is a fine pick. The guys that went after him, and I'll say that for you to go in the 13th round, but there was very little receivers taken on the board in the 13th round. And I like Watson's upside more than most of those guys. Although news out of Houston today would suggest a possible path to the field for Nico Collins that we did not particularly expect. So Watson is a fine pick here. Put with Rodgers even better.
Let's talk about that Houston news here because obviously John Mechie, it sounds like he's expected to miss the majority, if not all of the season with, and I feel, and like, I don't want to make light of this at all, but I practiced before going on the air. I practiced the type of leukemia he was diagnosed with, how to say it, because it's a long word. It's acute. And now I'm going to butcher it. I'm not even going to try.
Got to have that medical degree, Balky.
And I don't. I'm far from it. So thoughts and prayers, not only to John Mechie, but all his family that is going to help him through this as well. And we hope, he just gets better. And when he gets on the field, he gets on the field. Great. But what about Nico Collins here? Because this is a player that was drafted by Evan Silva here in the 13th round. Knowing that Brandon Cooks is no stranger to the trainer's table. And knowing that the Houston Texans are probably going to be throwing a lot. In fact, I think we talked about this, Ferrell, on Friday night show. But now Nico Collins is a different type of fantasy asset this year if Mechie's expected to miss the majority of the season.
Exactly. And there'll be another receiver to move into that spot. The wide receiver skill in the NFL is very, very deep. And I've been looking for this a player to go off the board. Another Houston Texan, and it amazes me that in this premium format and what he did at the end of the year, it amazes me when we look at Brevin Jordan. Is the 25th tight end, Balky? Can I believe that? Is that correct? Tight end
25, I think.
And he's got such a more impressive ceiling than that. Mm-hmm. And was that Hallam that took him as well?
Yeah, Shane Hallam took Brevin Jordan.
Good job. But yes, that was a blow to the Texans and a blow to the young man personally, and hopefully he returns to positive health, more important than anything. But I felt so disappointed this afternoon when I heard that news.
Yeah, I think all of us did too. I mean, nobody wants to see that at all. Really unfortunate. On the bright side, the reports I read, it sounds like he's in good spirits and expects to have this eliminated from his body soon. So that would be great. And obviously, we all became John Mechie the third fans today, and all the Mechies, John Mechie Jr., John Mechie Sr., everybody. So let's talk about the running backs here that went in the 13th round: Darrell Henderson, J.D. McKissick, James Robinson, Khalil Herbert, Jamal Williams. I just drafted Jamal Williams. I believe, was that in the Scott Fish Bowl? It's either in the Scott Fish Bowl or Kentucky main event today. They're blurring together. So I obviously like Williams this year. Khalil Herbert I like as well. And James Robinson, the report, I still remain skeptical on this guy getting back onto the field. And then I don't know when he gets back on the field, what role he's going to have with Travis Etienne looking so good. Ferrell, do you have a favorite among those three between Robinson, Herbert, and Williams? Because I think they all have a certain amount of upside. Robinson, I'm starting to warm up to. I'm just not all the way there yet.
I'm a big James Robinson guy, and he's been stuck in that 13th round, which is perfect for him, an unlucky ball player from last year. So he'll be in the 13th round. I'll take him every time I can get him, Balky. And I think he's a wonderful opportunity to get back into the role of the type of football player that he is. He was a favorite of mine when he came out as an undrafted rookie, and it just goes to show you how our fantasy players, as we get ready to gather at Planet Hollywood and to play online and all the things that the FFPC offers, is to look deep at the running back position in the preseason and guys who were not drafted, because there's some excellent college ball players that transition their game into the NFL. Coaches can see their talents perhaps when the scouting department can't. I am a big James Robinson fan, and I think he's a steal in that 13th round.
All right, so there you go, the Ferrell Elliott stamp of approval there. And now I'm even more warming up to James Robinson in the 13th round now after hearing that. Trio quarterbacks complete the 13th, Matt Ryan, Daniel Jones, and Mac Jones. And then we get the tight end round here as 5 tight ends go off the board in round 14. DJ Chark goes to Scott Connor, followed by Austin Hooper, the 3rd tight end drafted by James Kearney, not to be outdone by Sigmund Bloom, who also gets his 3rd tight end here in the 14th round. Robert Tonyan to go with George Kittle and Tyler Higbee. Zach Wilson, which we will try to keep all the conversation on the football field tonight and going forward here, because I think we've heard everything about Zach Wilson off the field ad nauseum for like the last 2 weeks. Hayden Hurst also making a trio of tight ends here for Jared Smola. Ryan Tannehill, the third quarterback chosen by Adrian Quintana. Michael Gallup goes off the board to Evan Silva, the third consecutive receiver he's drafted right after Nico Collins and Rondale Moore. Same thing with Henry Muto and Jake Wade. Landry, McCole Hardman, and now Jamison Crowder. I like that pick quite a bit as well. Brevin Jordan, we just talked about. KJ Osborne to Chris Carlson. Jacoby Myers to Estadio Fantasy. That's Mauricio Gutierrez. And then Cameron Brate, the third tight end off the board in the 14th round. Ferrell, I don't know how many of these FFPC best ball tournaments that you do, but in this format, as you know, 20 rounds, set it and forget it. And I know it's tight end premium. Are you a fan of grabbing the three tight ends, even if you grab one early? I mean, we look at what Daniel Osorio and Nico did here with the first slot tonight. They get Waller in the second, but they still add Ertz in the sixth, and now Cameron Brate back to the tight end position here in the 14th round. What are your thoughts on three tight ends in this format?
Yeah, I want three tight ends, but if I'm going early, top four, for me, top five, because apparently I'm drafting Schultz ahead of everyone.
Maybe not Jerry Jones. Maybe not Jerry Jones. Well, maybe Jerry Jones. They haven't figured out a long-term deal there yet, so I don't know.
Then I'm going to want to wait until about 13, 14. And in a scenario like this, I'm going to pray that I'm at one of the ends where I can stack them up and get my second and third guy. I really like some of the values. Go back to our friend Scott Connor at the number 12 position. He only has two, but if you're going to get one in the reception premium league that may not catch as many passes, but he's going to be a fantastic red zone player, is he got Hunter Henry. And then we talked about some another tight end new to the league that'd be a wonderful red zone guy. So at this point in time, I'm going away from the catches and I'm looking at the guys that I think are going to find the end zone and are going to be teamed with a prolific quarterback that leans on that tight end in tough times. And, I don't, Everett's gone. So I think most of our AFC West tight ends are off the board, except for a young player that plays for the Denver Broncos.
The godfather of the FFPC Pros versus Joes is weighing in on Twitter right now. Darren Armani want to get his tweet out on the air here, and I can't put it up there, so I'll just have to read it. He has some early observations on tonight's draft, pointing out that Mike Evans went to Sigmund Bloom tonight before Devontae Adams went to Jared Smola 2 picks later. Breece Hall's ADP in this format, the 401. He goes at the 502 tonight, so a little bit over full round of value. Josh Jacobs went late. We talked about him earlier. He has an ADP of 509. He goes at the 609 tonight. Sky Moore went to Shane Hallam, which we talked about earlier. I mean, Shane is a get your guys type of player in this format. So not only did he draft Tim Patrick a couple of rounds early, he went Sky Moore with the 809 pick. His ADP is the 1007. And then we just talked about it. Nico Collins, normally being picked at the 1602. He goes at the 1306 tonight. And I would imagine that would climb up a little bit more here going forward. We just went through the 14th. We got through most. Yeah, we got through the 14th round. Let's get into the 15th round here, Ferrell, as Daniel Osorio and Nico from FFC leads things off with Van Jefferson, followed by Gus Edwards to Mauricio Gutierrez as his number 4 running back. Joshua Palmer joining a pretty deep stable of receivers for Chris Carlson here at the third pick here in the 15th round. Mark Ingram, we'll see what happens there with the Alvin Kamara situation, but Shane Hallam grabbing him there. Jared Goff will be backing up Josh Allen this year for Muto and Wade here at the 5 spot. Tyrion Davis-Price, the rookie running back, as the 5th running back selected by Evan Silva, joining Chubb, Elliott, Melvin Gordon, and Naheem Hines. Logan Thomas will be the backup tight end to Mark Andrews for Adrian Quintana. Brian Robinson from the Commanders goes to Jared Smola. Devontae Parker from the Patriots goes to David Garcia. Carson Wentz from the Commanders going to Sigmund Bloom as his 3rd quarterback. So Sigmund Bloom now having 3 tight ends and 3 quarterbacks through 15 rounds. Chris Evans and then Kendrick Bourne completing the 15th round here. Kendrick Bourne, the Patriots receiver, going to Scott Connor from Dynasty and Chill. Let's talk about Chris Evans, Captain America himself, who is going as really the de facto backup now to Joe Mixon in Cincinnati. Now, Joe Mixon went to Sigmund Bloom in this draft. He chose not to take him in the 14th or 15th round. He gets taken ahead of him in the 15th, or right after him in the 15th round here to James Kearney. Ferrell, Chris Evans catches passes, and Samaje Perine was placed on the PUP list. Chris Evans' stock is probably going to go higher.
Yeah, as it should. And, the physical limitations of Perine, who I very much like as a player, now give Evans a chance to at least start camp with the repetitions and the chance to show what he has. And the team thinks a lot of him. It's a perfect place to take him.
I like the idea of, because you look at what Kearney has at running back. Barkley, okay, high upside, but there's some injury risk. Travis Etienne, I don't want to say there's an injury risk, but he's kind of unproven when the real bullets start flying.
Mm-hmm.
Miles Sanders is another upside guy who has been drafted as, it doesn't feel that long ago when I saw him go first overall in a Footballguys draft a couple of years ago. And now he falls to the 6th round. And then Chris Evans here. This all fits in with high upside, semi-high risk at running back here. But again, the winner of this league will get a free 2023 FFPC main event team. Second place, you don't even get a pair of socks or whatever they're giving away at Caddy Day in Caddyshack. You don't even get that. So you're trying to win this league, which is what all these guys are trying to do here. Brian,
I'll adapt Balky, my favorite line from Judge Schmale from Caddyshack. You'll get nothing and like it. That's my favorite line. Balky, do you ever look at these kind of things and, you have a favorite player? I've got a favorite young receiver, and I can't find him on the board. I can't believe that he's still available. And then I was surprised if he is still available. I'm surprised that team number 10 didn't take him, and it's just wild. So I'm waiting for this player to go, and I'm wondering, when I've been drafting him in the 13th and 14th round, if I particularly had to. But I see that he's probably been pushed down by the fact that all these quarterbacks are going, and now we're drafting every tight end that's possibly ever lined up at the position. Now, it's fantastic.
I think I know what receiver you're talking about.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't see him on the board either, but I do believe he will go before the end of this draft here tonight.
Yeah, you think he'll get back to Team 10?
Yeah, I thought he'd be gone by now. So the fact that he's been slipping this far, I would imagine that he would, but who the heck knows when you get 6 pros and 6 Joes together in this type of format.
Team 10 could use him.
Team 10 could use him. Brian Robinson for Team 8. That is Jared Smola. We haven't talked about Robinson a whole lot, Ferrell.
Yeah.
Antonio Gibson has been slipping. J.D. McKissick goes to, after sort of being in Buffalo for about 20 hours, he resigns with Washington. What do you make of Robinson this year? Because I'm not a big Gibson guy, so I could definitely sign on for Robinson later in the draft, which is what Smola did here. What do you think about that Washington backfield?
Can't you be a big Gibson guy when Gibson is going in the 7th round in this format?
I can't be a big Gibson guy. 7th round, I can get on board with them, especially if I go 0 RB. Then I'm a big Gibson guy for sure. But
there was a 0 RB. I've got to see Brian Robinson in his role play in the backfield there. I've got to see it in the preseason. There's 3 games, and that'll be enough. And I want to have a better understanding of the plan for that player because I'm impressed by Antonio Gibson. And if there ever was a committee, J.D. McKissick is not going to let go of his role in it. So, it's a wonderfully assembled football running back by committee for the Commanders. None of it is particularly attractive for what we're doing here in fantasy football.
What is attractive is what's been going on here in the 16th round as we move on here. Jalen Tolbert, the rookie receiver from Dallas, goes to Scott Connor. Corey Davis of New York Jets fame goes to James Kearney, followed by Mo Alley Cox, the 4th tight end now for Sigmund Bloom here as he is just loading up on the position. Marcus Mariota, the 3rd quarterback. drafted by David Garcia, Robbie Anderson, Marlon Mack, Taysom Hill off the board after that. Evan Silva taking Taysom Hill there as his backup to Travis Kelce. Jamison Williams, the rookie out of Detroit, goes to Henry Mudo and Jake Wade. Zamir White, the rookie from Las Vegas, goes to Shane Hallam there as well, as he gets Zamir White and Josh Jacobs on the same squad. Davis Mills, the third quarterback drafted by Chris Carlson to go along with Joe Burrow and Matthew Stafford. Raheem Mostert, your guy, to Estadio Fantasy. Mauricio Gutierrez grabs him there as one of his backup running backs, and then we complete the round with Marvin Jones. Ferrell, who's a more underrated player this year? And I think I know what you're going to say, but I'm going to ask you anyway. Between these last two players, Raheem Mostert, new team, crowded backfield in Miami. Is he more underrated, or is Marvin Jones a guy who gets a really good offensive mind and Doug Peterson helming that offense? Another year of Trevor Lawrence, and yet nobody's talking about him because they're talking about the rise of Laviska Shenault and the big contract for Christian Kirk.
Yeah, and Marvin Jones is a significant wide receiver with a quarterback that we expect his game to step up. Marvin Jones is underrated. Drafters are scared of Mostert. More people will celebrate Mostert, but they don't trust his availability. Marvin Jones just quietly gets his way to 70 catches. Even in a disaster of a year that was part of the Urban Meyer group, Marvin Jones made a contribution to the Jaguars, and more importantly, a contribution to his quarterback. It's a perfect idea, the perfect format for him. It's ridiculous to me that he goes in the 15th round. I would have probably drafted Mostert sooner here, but the great picks for Team 1 and Team 2, getting players like this late in the draft.
We are moving on here to cover the 17th round. Once again, you are tuning into League One. Ferrell and I are going to be doing this 5 more times this year. Once more tomorrow. We'll be back tomorrow to do this, as well as Tuesday, and then next Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. Once again, each of these leagues feature 6 fantasy football industry pros taking on 6 FFPC Joes that were in a random drawing of everybody who was signed up for the FFPC main event by May 31st. And once again, you can still sign up for the FFPC main event. We highly encourage that type of behavior because for the first time in season-long fantasy football industry history, we are giving away a $1 million grand prize. Never been done before. Grand prize last year is $500,000. Now it's $1 million. And the top 3 places are all going to take home a minimum of a 6-figure grand prize as well. So you don't even have to win the whole thing to win life-changing money. You can sign up for that at myffpc.com. And we encourage you to do it by the end of by midnight, Pacific time tomorrow, because then you will get your early draft slot by August 1st. So no matter when you're drafting in the FFPC main event, you will know what slot it is. You can prep for a week, 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, whatever it is, and you'll be all set to try to take down that $1 million grand prize. Moving on in the 17th round, George Pickens to Daniel Osorio and his partner Nico at the 1 spot. Sony Michel, the 3rd consecutive running back drafted by Mauricio Gutierrez. Paris Campbell, Alec Pierce, KJ Hamler off the board of that. Carlson, Hallam, and Mudo and Wade, respectively. Rob Gronkowski, the retired Rob Gronkowski, going as the 3rd tight end to Evan Silva here. Kelce, Hill, and Gronk. That is a pick to win if I've ever seen it. And then Adrian Quintana also gets his 3rd tight end. Jonnu Smith, the New England Patriots tight end, goes to him with the 1707 pick. Donovan Peoples-Jones to Jared Smola. Jeff Wilson to David Garcia. Kenyon Drake to Sigmund Bloom. So the triumvirate of Raiders running backs is not to be for Shane Hallam. Curtis Samuel to James Kearney. And then Darrell Williams to Scott Connor. Ferrell, was that young receiver you were talking about that you wanted to see Sigmund Bloom go with, was that Alec Pierce by any chance?
Alec Pierce is the perfect pick, and I cannot believe he wasn't paired with his quarterback, Matt Ryan, and I cannot believe he's in the 17th round. He's going to be one of your favorite words, Balky, the de facto number 2 receiver for the Indianapolis Colts, and a team which also has a very good tight end on the bench that hasn't been picked. But nevertheless, I don't think people understand this player for who he is, and they'll catch up with that in the preseason. I do not understand Donovan Peoples-Jones making his way into the 17th pick because or 17th round, because This is a player that is soon to be the next Marquez Valdez-Scantling in a situation that can take the proverbial top off the defenses. Curtis Samuel, we've talked about on the show. He should go 17th round in redraft. He should go much, much higher in this format. I'm crazy about my Scott Connor. He got Tolbert, Bourne, and DJ Shark. I would have rather had Donovan Peoples-Jones mixed in with that Tolbert pick. So it's just about who you like. You've got that friend Balky, a notable fantasy player. KJ Hamler, another pick. I love all the receivers in the 17th round. My goodness, I would have been drafting running backs early. Your friend that says there's never a bad pick in the double-digit rounds. Well,
Joe Del Zanero, yeah, Baker Boy loves it.
The Baker Boy is right, but there's some picks I like more than others. And you talk about stack with what's happened here in the 18th round. You talk about stack with our team number 7. I kind of like what's going on late here at the running back position.
All right, so let's talk about the elephant in the room here in the 17th round, Rob Gronkowski to Evan Silva. Now, we know what he said, we know what he doubled down on, and we know what he reiterated on that double down. I am done with football. I'm not coming back. Yet his agent says, I don't know. His girlfriend says, it doesn't seem like this is the final retirement. So Evan Silva, betting on that this is a good investment in the 17th round. No waivers in this. So you can't dump Gronk. Like, you got to keep him on your roster the whole season. Ferrell, is Rob Gronkowski still in a tight end premium format in the 17th round? Is he still a solid investment there, or would you rather go with somebody else?
Well, yeah, and he drafted Taysom Hill in the 16th round, and Gronkowski doesn't have a team, and I like Gronkowski better than Hill there. So it's and he's got Travis Kelce, and he's kind of just fooling around down here. But there is one young tight end I would like to see him take, and there's an old tight end that he could still take. I think he's just running out of players to take. I think that's exactly what happens here. Gronk, who knows? And so, yeah, it is worth the proverbial dart throw. He probably could have done it a little later, though, and got some of these players that are lining up and going to be in camp and going to be making an effort in week 1. So I would, if I wanted to play that Gronk card, I would deal it off the bottom of the deck in round 20.
18th round, Wan'Dale Robinson to Scott Connor, Baker Mayfield to James Kearney, Randall Cobb, the forgotten man in Green Bay, the new forgotten man in Green Bay. Sigmund Bloom takes him there. Benny Snell goes to David Garcia. Remember, David Garcia did take Najee Harris in the first round. Will Fuller, also teamless, but he goes to Jared Smola. Rex Burkhead off the board to Adrian Quintana. James Washington, the new Dallas Cowboy, to Evan Silva. Deontay Foreman, the new Carolina Panther, to Henry Muto and Jake Wade, followed by David Bell to Shane Hallam. Jerick McKinnon, Jimmy Garoppolo, and Isaiah McKenzie are the final 3 picks of the 18th round. What do you make of Jerick McKinnon here to Chris Carlson? Because this is a player who wasn't very good at the end of the regular season in 2021, yet he was very, very good in the playoffs, Ferrell. Yeah. What type of Jerick McKinnon are fantasy owners in for this year if they draft him?
It's interesting because I very much like what he's done with his young backs here, and he's playing McKinnon to step up and score for him once or twice during the year. And there's the capabilities of doing that. I would have to look at his bye weeks to see how much study he put into it. But all in all, there's nothing wrong with that pick, and there might be some guys that I would like a little more, but you certainly can't. McKinnon's in the mix, and he's been successful recently, so why not? Let's talk about what's going on with Houston running backs.
Okay, well, we could definitely do that. Are you just talking about it in general or in this draft?
I'm talking about in this draft.
Okay, so Houston running backs here as we look forward here, and God, my screen is at a bad spot right now. All right, so you are looking at, I almost call them Rockets running backs, Texans running backs here. In this draft. And Ferrell, I don't see any of them. Am I missing it?
Yes, you are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Team number 7, Balky, starting in the 12th.
Oh, got it. Yeah, Marlon Mack is who Adrian Quintana gets in the 16th round. Rex Burkhead also in the 18th round to Adrian Quintana,
and then go up to the 12th round, Balky.
And already had Damian Pierce. Already, Thank you. This is
a clean sweep.
This is why he's the best in the business, people, because he's like my producer / co-host. He tells me everything that's going on that I'm not seeing it. Houston Texans trio stack in a 20-round draft. And it sounds like you're on board with this type of strategy, Ferrell.
Well, I am this late. If you're going to take pot shots at it, and I believe Marlon Mack may emerge there as the number 1 fantasy scorer, Rex Burkhead always seems to put points on the board. As I recall last year, I think it was last year, he had a 20-point game one week.
Yeah, he did.
And, we just talked about rookie running backs with promise. They're giving the ability to develop. This is a team that has certainly a lot of question marks, but when you can lock up their entire backfield between the 12th and the 18th round, why not be in business with the Houston Texans?
The day after Christmas last year, Ferrell, in a 41-29 victory over the Los Angeles Chargers, Rex Burkhead, 22 carries, 149 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 catches in that game as well. Rex Burkhead, my God, this is what makes fantasy football awesome and why it makes it suck, is because it's like that, and not necessarily in that order, but we love it. We love Rex Burkhead on this show as well. In fact, I think I named, or if I didn't do it last year, one of my Kentucky team names this year is going to be named after Rex Burkhead. So that'll be exciting. I love Rex Burkhead. So that is what's going on with Adrian Quintana grabbing 3 Texans running backs here. And now we are in the 19th round. Boston Scott and Hassan Haskins lead off the 19th round to Daniel Osorio and Mauricio Gutierrez. Greg Dulcich, the rookie tight end from Denver, is the 3rd tight end chosen by Chris Carlson. Tyler Conklin, the 3rd tight end off the board to Shane Hallam. Sammy Watkins, the new Green Bay Packer, to Muto and Wade. AJ Green to Evan Silva. Adam Troutman to Adrian Quintana. Terrace Marshall is the 4th consecutive receiver to go to Jared Smola from DraftSharks.com as he is loading up on the receivers. I believe he has 9 of them now. We'll see what he does in the last round. Damian Williams, the 3rd consecutive running back chosen by David Garcia. Devin Duvernay from Baltimore is going to Sigmund Bloom here in his penultimate pick, followed by Eno Benjamin and Julio Jones, a teamless Julio Jones to Scott Connor. Ferrell, what do you do we're still in July and we got a good, 5 weeks or so until the season starts, maybe 6 weeks until the season starts. What do you do with guys that are unsigned free agents? The Will Fullers, the Julio Jones, the David Johnsons of the world. Are they worth dart throws at the end of the draft like this? Or do you usually go with a guy that currently is employed by a team instead?
The favorite wide receiver I like in the 19th round is Devin Duvernay. But I think I could have found someone better than Julio Jones. But, Scott Connor right before took Wan'Dale Robinson, and there's his dart throw. And, so he's understanding that someone in the NFL will take a look at Julio Jones and say, you know what, this guy has got some gas left in the tank, can help us win some games. And there's no reason that may not happen. So I'm not real I don't think I would have taken that player, but I'm not going to put together an argument for it. And they're bringing some 20th round wide receivers that are all over the spectrum of young players and older players. And I've got my favorites, and we've talked about Duvernay. We don't know what he's going to bring to the table, but he is going to be on the field for the Ravens. So, that's why he becomes my favorite player. I know he's going to be on the field for a team that has to put the ball in a playmaking wide receiver's hands.
My apologies to our next guest who has been waiting a while. I'm just noticing it now because I'm still getting used to this software. So my apologies. I'm going to bring him on right now. But this is the start of the 20th round. This is the round that Shane Hallam took Dalton Schultz last year, Ferrell.
Wow.
We took Dalton Schultz in the 20th.
Wow.
We'll point that out as we bring in tonight's guest, ladies and gentlemen. You already heard from his drafting partner earlier in the program. Let's bring in Team 1, Daniel Osorio. Daniel, welcome to the program.
Hey,
Sorry
Daniel.
for keeping you on hold for so long, man.
No, it's okay. No worries. You guys got to do your thing. And, we're still drafting and making sure that 20th pick has the best value.
Yeah, that's the whole idea. You get the 20th pick right. Worked out for Shane Hallam last year. There is some buzz on Twitter. You guys are really doing a good job with your late round receivers here. Van Jefferson, Marvin Jones, George Pickens, Isaiah McKenzie. Are you pretty happy with those receivers after you only had 3 of them through 10 rounds?
I'm pretty happy with the way this whole draft has turned out. We hit, I know Nico touched on it, but we really hit with our Waller Carr combo, doing the stack with Las Vegas. And Tyreek Hill, as he mentioned, but I'll mention it again. Why is he going right there in that spot? You can't pass the
Amazing.
You can't do it. So
you guys are the double-digit darlings of this draft. Look at you guys. It's a fantastic job.
Thank you. So, the draft couldn't went any better. We really try to map out the strategy and how potentially it was going to work. We've already done some FFPC best ball drafts prior to this draft just to prepare, which for everyone in the audience is a great idea for you to do. And they're still offering great prizes. So it's a great training ground to really prepare for this style of draft.
So, Daniel, we talked about the Allgeier pick when we had Nico on, and I said how he has been rising up draft boards. Did you guys feel like, okay, if we want Allgeier here, we sort of got to grab him at 12 because he won't be around much longer after that?
Yeah, no, exactly. We had him pegged around those rounds, and he has been climbing up draft boards. Having said that, sometimes a lot of players don't get the proper draft position just based on the team, right? That team's new with a new quarterback and Mariota. They're missing Calvin Ridley this year, but those players are still in position to be number ones. And just because you're grabbing them late doesn't mean they're not going to get points. So we're really happy with that pick. And I know that Nico was on earlier, not to cut you off, but he was explaining how we were potentially going to go wide receiver. And we were looking at several wide receivers at that spot, but we just felt that Allgeier was too good to pass up. And Darrell Henderson has provided for the Rams, depending on how Cam Akers ends up, you don't know that, as a good solid RB2 with potential RB1 potential every week. So we just couldn't pass on those upside running backs at this point in the draft where we felt we could get the certain wide receivers later in the draft, and we did. So I've
got a favorite Rams running back that I'm waiting for you to take here.
You are on the
well, you know what?
Mr. Irrelevant, here he comes.
Yeah, they're going to surprise me. So I told Nico and my other partner, Big Narf,
Big Narf's in on this too.
Yeah, and so is Big Ed. He's on my left. But I told them to surprise me with this last pick and see what comes out. I'm not too sure what they're going to do, but I left it in their hands. We're all experienced, high-stakes players, so this pick shouldn't be any surprise, whatever it's going to be.
Oh, Gronkowski's already gone.
Yeah.
So this is exciting. So is this okay? And here it is. The pick is in. The pick is in, ladies and gentlemen. And the final pick of the draft is indeed Mitch Trubisky. So you guys get a third quarterback there. We'll see what happens with that. Daniel, do you guys? So are you guys all co-managers for the FFPC main event when you're drafting?
So what we do is we're like a collaborative of high-stakes fantasy players, right? So Nico right now is based out of Texas. Big Narf is out of the Bay Area. Me and Big Ed are in Central California. And we really share our draft philosophies with each other. But when we go to Vegas, we do co-manage some teams. And we sit with each other to help out. We do have a base of what we believe will work. And we let the individual player, based on their knowledge and based on their based on whom they like, but still under the same philosophy, pick who they feel is going to be the best fit for that particular team. So we have around 9 individual managers under our group, which is the Silicon Valley Fantasy Football Club, which is SVFFC. And we really believe that what we're doing works. Big Narf almost took the whole tournament in 2017. We've had Davod, which is another guy out of San Francisco area, almost take it in 2018 and 2019. So we've come close with what we feel is going to be our philosophy to win. And this year it's $1 million. Yeah. This year is $1 million. So we come in as a group, and for us, it's really a great time. We share, we bond as brothers. We're all coming from different families, and but at the same time, we love fantasy football. So we do help each other out. And our whole philosophy is 27-17 is to make each other better. Iron sharpens iron.
I love it. Daniel, is your family of the SVFFC, has it grown? Has it grown exponentially over the years?
Yeah, so right now we do have we have a female player. Her name is Stacy. She's on the team learning how to play fantasy football. We have a newer blood. Nico is newer. He's younger, as you've seen. But I believe that Nico is the future of our
Nico
group.
is the future.
Yeah,
and there's a lot of these Stacy girls getting worn around in fantasy football. We're crazy about all the Stacys in fantasy football. And I tell you what, so there's about 10 of you. If you would decide to come to the Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship, 9 of you can stay in one room, and I, as the commissioner, will buy Stacy her own room. So we'll be ready for you guys. So it'll be great.
I will take you up on that offer. I've met you in Vegas several times. Let's do it. I will contact you offline and get your information. And me and Nico, we travel for fantasy football.
Well, he's in Texas. He's already halfway here. So we're all right.
So let's do it. Thank you for the offer. I appreciate that for throwing it out there, and we'll do that.
All right. So Daniel, you are you're in the catbird seat here right now. Since you are the final guest of the program tonight, give us your favorite pick of your team tonight, and then give us the pick you're most nervous about.
Oh, definitely the Tyreek Hill pick. There's no way he should have been there. We've seen him live play in Kansas City. He's just an electric player that could take a swing pass for 90 yards. I know he's with Tua this year, but it shouldn't matter that much. I know it's a drop off from Mahomes, obviously, but he is going to be the focal point of that offense. There's no way they're not going to give him the rock to score for that team, which in turn relates to fantasy points. So I love that pick at that. The one pick I'm a little nervous about, I want to say, is J.K. Dobbins coming off an ACL injury. But our thought process, since we did select Lamar Jackson, was to team up that particular Ravens backfield ground game. And whoever's going to score the points is either going to be Jackson on the ground or it's going to be J.K. Dobbins. And there's some flexibility in terms of his recovery time since Lamar does run the ball quite often. So, but I am a little nervous about that pick because ACLs are ACLs. And you never know how a player is going to return from that.
So when you look at this draft, Daniel, how does the strategy for this how this Pros versus Joe's draft, how does this compare with the same strategy you're going to be utilizing in the main event?
I would say one thing that is going to remain consistent is the stack. Mm-hmm. That stacking with that wide receiver or tight end with that QB, just based on last year and all the teams that we had, you get a lot of points. I mean, I don't have to explain it to you guys. It's consistently big points when both players are scoring. And so it just puts you in a position to win and get more points above your opponent. So that particular strategy is going to stay. In regards to the running back selection, that might change because obviously this is a best ball, right? Like Ronald Jones late, I do love that pick.
Love that.
It ended up being the running back 1, and you're not spending any capital as far as draft capital on the pick. So, but in a regular week by week format, it's a little different because you have to actually swap out players. You can't just rely on the best ball scoring strategy, the way the best ball system works. So it might tweak a little bit in terms of our running back selection, but the QB, wide receiver, QB, tight end, that's going to stay the same throughout.
Listen, so good to have you on. So good to pick your brain, even if it's for a couple of minutes tonight, Daniel. Congratulations on your Pros versus Joe's draft. Good luck, not only in this league, but your main event league this year. And we'll see you out in Vegas, man. Can't wait. We're only a few weeks away.
Oh, we're pumped up. We're ready. We go in like with a big group, and it's not only the drafting that's fun, but it's just the atmosphere that the FFPC provides. You guys are always hospitable to every person that plays. We enjoy the experience, so we will see you there. But before that, we're gonna go to Kentucky.
All right.
Yeah, we're gonna go to Kentucky. Yeah, we're gonna make that happen. I'll touch base with you offline, and we'll make it happen.
All right. So I will see you in Louisville before I see you in Las Vegas. So this will be very exciting. Daniel, appreciate it, man. Thanks so much for coming aboard.
All right. Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
All right. That was Daniel Osorio, ladies and gentlemen, from Team 1 tonight, the FFPC Joe, who had the first overall pick. Good stuff from him. Good stuff from Nico as well, as we heard from both those guys. A consortium that is not only coming to Las Vegas, Ferrell, but will be maybe taking down the KFFSC main event this year. We won't know for several months away, but be excited to see those guys in Louisville.
Oh, I was campaigning for a late Kyron Williams pick
I knew you were, and I knew you were getting at that, but I didn't want to say anything.
I was just, I would have loved that pick. That would have, but you know what? They really surprised me with what they were able to accomplish in the double-digit rounds. And I think it started with Carr. They got a Raider in the Magic. They got the Raider quarterback, and the Magic just trickled on down from there. And I like their Cameron Brate pickup because. Kyle Rudolph went in the middle of the 20th, Balky, and there would have been an interesting stack. I don't necessarily think they needed a 4 tight end, but if there was going to be one, the Rudolph Brate stack would have been. I like their players.
Well, I like doing this broadcast with you tonight.
Yeah, it was fun.
This is fun. Calling the action. Let's just do it again tomorrow. We'll do it an hour later instead of 8-7 Central. We'll come on 9-8 Central.
We're going to start at 9. Okay.
Start at 9. That's the plan. Farrell, thanks so much. We'll talk to you again tomorrow, man.
See you then, brother.
Farrell Elliott, the definitive commissioner of fantasy football, ladies and gentlemen, as you can follow him on Twitter at @JFarrellElliott and at KFFSC. Want to thank tonight's guests, Shane Hallam, Nico, and of course, Daniel Osorio from Team 1 tonight, the FFPC Joes. Always good when we can talk to some of these guys as they're drafting their teams. It was awesome. Don't forget, the main event early draft slot deadline is indeed tomorrow at midnight Pacific time. Make sure you have all your teams paid up, taking advantage of that $400 additional team discount. And that way you will know what slot you are going to have for the main event on August 1st. That is a huge advantage if you can get it, so make sure you're taking advantage. If you want to jump in the FFPC main event right now, no need to wait. Slow drafts are off and running. Multiple Football Guys drafts filling up every day as well. In fact, we're trying to fill the one at the top of the hour as well as the midnight one tonight. If you're looking for some action now that this broadcast is winding down, you can put all the analysis you heard from our great guests tonight to winning a $500,000 grand prize in the Football Guys Players Championship. The inaugural Superflex Best Ball Tournament and the Best Ball Tournament with the FFPC still ongoing. Superflex getting very close to filling. Well over 70% of that is full. Dynasty Startup still available. We're going to do those for the next month plus. If you want a Dynasty 365-day challenge, we've got the answer for you at myffpc.com. And you say, well, Balky, I'm not down for all these national tournaments. I just like, filling up, playing against 11 other people. You can do that too. We got plenty of satellites, best balls, classics, Terminator formats, varsity formats, Superflex, whatever your favorite format is, we probably have it at the FFPC, and you can play in those as well. Join the KFFSC main event and the Run to Daylight Championship at kffsc.com. Those are filling up as well. I'm in the midst of a Kentucky main event myself. And I would encourage you to come to Louisville so you can not only see Ferrell, and you can not only see me, but you can see Daniel Osorio and his crew coming out to Louisville this year as well. We will be back at 9-8 Central tomorrow. It is the Get Him a Body Bag League 2. The Joe is participating tomorrow. Roy Parenzuela, Corey Hanstein, Michael Apt, a former Football Guys Players Championship overall winner, Michael Zuka, who we've had on the HSFF Hour before, Julio Fuentes, Josh and Laura Durham. We just had Josh on the show about a month or so ago. And then, of course, Brian Harris, who you can not only you not only heard on the HSFF Hour, he will be a guest on the Road of his High Stakes Lowdown in about a week or so. So that's exciting as well. First time I'm announcing that. The pros tomorrow: Hussein Aksu from the Fantasy Couch, Todd Burrows from the Run to Daylight podcast, Jason Petropoulos from Brodo Fantasy, Peter Overzet from Fantasy Life will be participating tomorrow, John Hansen from Fantasy Points, and of course Fantasy Football Morning on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio. And then you have Curtis Patrick from RotoViz, Ryan McDowell from Dynasty League Football. That is at 9-8 Central tomorrow. Thank you so much for watching. These draft boards will be posted on Twitter within the next hour or two via the FFPC, the Twitter account, HSFF Hour Twitter account, of course, my Twitter account at Eric Balkman as well. Thanks so much for watching. We really appreciate it. We'll see you again tomorrow. Your week officially starts now.
This has been another episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com. It was broadcast live and was watched around the world. Balky and Ferrell will be back next week with more analysis, more interviews, and more advice from guests much smarter than they are. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk with you again next week.
Yourself. It's
One more thing before I forget, and it's not that I'm forgetting. Sign up for the FFPC main event. Get your teams paid off by midnight Pacific time tomorrow. You could be the first ever season-long fantasy football millionaire, and this is the way to do it. Strategize, take advantage of every opportunity you can. This is one of them. You get your early draft slot. You'll be able to strategize and plot your way to $1 million early. So take advantage of that. Midnight Pacific tomorrow, and we'll talk to you at 9/8 Central tomorrow as well.